On the morning of June 23, 1942, Royal Air Force spotters at RAF Pembrey in South Wales witnessed something extraordinary. Out of the cloud cover, a sleek German fighter plane descended and lined up for landing. The sirens should have screamed. Anti-aircraft guns should have lit up the sky. But the pilot's approach was calm and deliberate, not the erratic flight of an enemy trying to evade fire. The aircraft, a Focke-Wulf FW 190, a model feared and nearly invincible in combat, touched down smoothly on the grass runway and came to a stop. The engine cut out, the canopy slid open. And out stepped Oberleutnant Armin Faber of Jagdgeschwader, too, looking around in confusion. His blood ran cold. The aircraft parked on the flight line were not Messerschmitts, they were Spitfires. The uniforms rushing toward him weren't grey, they were RAF blue. Faber had made a catastrophic error. In the heat of aerial combat and through a thick cloud layer, he had become disoriented and mistakenly landed his FW 190 at an enemy base. He believed he was in German-occupied France. Instead, he had delivered Germany's most advanced fighter aircraft, intact, straight into British hands. What followed was an intelligence windfall that would fundamentally shift Allied air strategy and change the course of the war in Europe. For nearly a year, the FW 190 had been an aerial nightmare for Allied pilots. It first appeared in combat over France in September 1941 and immediately stunned RAF commanders. Squadron leader J.E. Johnny Johnson, who would later become Britain's top ace, recalled his first encounter with the FW 190. It was faster than the Spitfire Mark V in level flight and in the dive. It could outroll the British aircraft with ease. And its armament, 4 20mm cannons and 2 machine guns, could tear Allied planes apart in seconds. The numbers backed it up. RAF losses in early 1942 climbed sharply. Veterans of the Battle of Britain were being shot down by an aircraft they simply couldn't match. American pilots arriving in Europe were warned immediately, don't try to outroll an FW 190, don't enter a turning fight, don't follow it into a dive. The list of what not to do was long. The list of what worked, almost non-existent. Intelligence services were desperate to understand the machine that was turning the skies over Europe into a German shooting gallery. But every FW 190 shot down over Britain had been too badly damaged to study. Then Faber made his fatal mistake. At just 21 years old, Faber was no novice. He was a decorated pilot flying with one of the Luftwaffe's elite units. On June 23rd, he had flown escort for bombers over the Channel. During a dogfight with RAF Spitfires, he became separated, disoriented by aggressive maneuvers and dense cloud. Thinking he was over friendly territory, he landed at RAF Pembrey. His realization came too late. RAF personnel were already surrounding his aircraft. Within minutes, Faber was in custody, and British intelligence was poring over a pristine FW 190. Within 48 hours, the aircraft was transported to the Royal Aircraft Establishment in Farnborough. There, British engineers examined every inch of the fighter. What they discovered confirmed every pilot's worst fears and provided the keys to overcoming them. The FW 190 was a masterpiece of German engineering. Its BMW 801 radial engine produced more horsepower than the Spitfire's Merlin engine. Its roll rate was unmatched. The FW 190 could reverse direction mid-combat faster than any Allied aircraft, gaining critical angles and opportunities to fire. British test pilot Captain Eric Brown later said the FW 190 didn't just respond to control inputs, it responded to thought. The aircraft's firepower was devastating. Its wing-mounted cannons were placed close to the fuselage, creating a dense, lethal concentration of fire. A 2-second burst from its guns delivered more firepower than a Spitfire could unleash in 10. Its heavier frame and streamlined design made it nearly untouchable in a dive. But the Farnborough tests also revealed weaknesses that no Allied pilot had been able to exploit before. The FW-190's powerful radial engine struggled at high altitudes. Above 20,000 feet, its performance dropped sharply due to cooling issues and power loss. Conversely, the Spitfire's Merlin engine thrived in thin air. The FW-190 could outroll a Spitfire, but not outturn one in a prolonged dogfight. Most critically, the controls on the FW-190 became dangerously heavy at speeds over 400 miles per hour, requiring significant strength to pull out of a dive. These moments, when the pilot was fighting the aircraft itself, became crucial opportunities for attack. Armed with this intelligence, the RAF quickly issued tactical bulletins to its squadrons. But the real shift came when American pilots were invited to Farnborough. In August 1942, U.S. Army Air Forces personnel flew the captured FW-190. Major Cass Howe wrote a blunt assessment. Below 20,000 feet, the FW-190 would win if flown well, but above 25,000 feet, the tide turned. American P-47 Thunderbolts and upgraded Spitfires held the advantage at high altitude. Howe's conclusion forced German pilots to fight in the sky's upper reaches or die. That single recommendation changed American air tactics. P-47 units began flying bomber escort missions at maximum altitude. Fighter sweeps operated at 25,000 feet or higher. If German fighters wanted to engage, they had to climb into airspace where their engines faltered and their aircraft struggled. The results were immediate. American kill ratios improved. German pilots, once confident in their technical superiority, found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned at altitudes they couldn't dominate. The intelligence gained from Faber's mistake also influenced aircraft development. Engineers improved aileron designs on American fighters to match the FW-190's responsiveness. Gun layouts were adjusted for tighter fire concentration. Even cockpit ergonomics was studied and replicated. Most importantly, the psychological advantage the FW-190 had once held was gone. Allied pilots now knew the German aircraft wasn't invincible. It had strengths, but it also had weaknesses. And they had the playbook. By late 1943, the balance of power in the skies had shifted. The Spitfire Mark IX and P-51 Mustang could meet or exceed the FW-190's performance. Tactical mistakes were no longer being made. German aces like Joseph Pips Priller noted that American pilots no longer followed them into traps like rolling scissors. They fought smarter, they fought higher, they fought with knowledge born of a single error in navigation. The FW-190 Faber delivered remained at Farnborough throughout the war. It served as a benchmark against which later German variants, like the high-altitude D-9 Dora, were measured. After the war, historians recognized the moment for what it was, one of the greatest intelligence coups of World War II. Thousands of lives were saved, not by a secret operation, but by one confused pilot landing in the wrong place. Faber spent the rest of the war in a Canadian POW camp. He returned to Germany after the war and lived a quiet life until 1976. Initially blamed for the disaster, later assessments acknowledged the truth: combat disorientation could happen to anyone. The real failure was in the assumption that the FW-190 would never fall into enemy hands. This episode underscores a vital truth in warfare. Technological superiority is powerful, but knowledge is more powerful. The FW-190 was a marvel of German engineering, but once its secrets were known, it was no longer a mystery. It was a target with vulnerabilities. And because of that, it was beatable. Armin Faber's mistake didn't just change the trajectory of his life, it changed the entire air war over Europe. One pilot, one landing, one aircraft. That's all it took to shift the balance of power in the skies